Welcome back to Digiburst, guys. You wanted the deck profile for the Value Angels deck, or as some other people call it, a Fanny Loop or Angel Control. It goes by a lot of names, but I like Angel Value because it describes the deck the best. All the cards are about gaining value and gaining an over advantage of your opponent, and winning just by the number of cards you have on the board and how much pressure you can put on them in the long game. So I'm just going to dive right in, and you can take it as it is. 4 Tamer, I already got them on the board. Super good. You're only running 4. You only really need 4. You're not going to need a 5th one. This one just has the best effect. Controls your hand, keeps your hand nice and fresh, gets you your rookie when you need to draw into it. Just super solid. You are going to late game, so it's possible you will need the 5th, but I don't think you need the 5th in order to keep the pressure up. Once you're in late game, you'll be able to play Digimon and get that board presence simply by putting Digimon on the board. You won't really need it through the raising because you're not really building stacks. A lot of the time you are building up on the board rather than in the raising. You can definitely build in the raising with the Gatomons, which is definitely a technique you can use for late game. You're really not running that many rookies, so a lot of the time you aren't getting into that last egg in the late game. You are typically in 3 deep in the late game. So yeah, 4 Tamer, super solid. Into the rookies, 4 of the Gazimon, and then 3 of the Psychmon. They're just the best ones. Psychmon's really good for the D-Reaper matchup, as well as sometimes Beelstar comes up and Death X is really nice for those. And Gazimon being a memory blocker is just super solid because you have a lot of decks playing the memory boosters as well as some inherent effects that do give you memory. So it's just super solid all around. The best rookies to play in this deck because they are of course some kind of floodgate. And purple has good access to floodgates. Level 4s, 4 Gatomon, 2 of the Black Gatomon, and 1 of the Mikumon. 4 Gatomon, it's the heart and soul of the whole deck. Super necessary to playing 4 of it, and it's pretty easy to come by if you have starter decks. But you really need to be knowing when to evo this in the nursery and when to play it, and how best to utilize the reducing effect in order to go into your lines proper. There's also a couple of things you can utilize with this in order to get the most value out of it when you play it. So we'll go more into this in later detail once we get the right cards I'll be showing you later on in the deck. So for Gatomon, 2 of the Black Gatomon, really nice to push for game, put out extra pressure on. That rush is really important, as well as that retaliation can be important to give to your larger stacks. I find 2 very important in order to get into this in the mid game if you want to start putting the pressure on in the mid game, because if you play 1, you can sometimes be in the bottom deck and you're just not seeing it until super late game, and by that point you might have missed the opportunity to best exploit this card. 1 Mikumon, I'm not really feeling it, honestly. There are a couple of cards that I'm considering cutting and switching out for other cards. Those other cards being memory boosters. Just having more consistency is super important for this deck, especially if you are playing a low rookie count. Mikumon was just there to fill out gaps for my champion lineup. So definitely considering switching this one up for a booster. I didn't really see much value on the deletion effect, and the security effect, only playing 1 of it, it didn't really come up all too often and was kind of lackluster. Last champion is the Kazemon. Honestly, switches out for the purple hybrid. The only reason why I was playing the Kazemon was because at one point I was playing yellow bottoms, but I switched to purple bottoms and I forgot to switch guy out. So purple hybrid. Level 5s. 3 of the starter deck Angel Woman from the Mastermind starter deck, 1 of the Angel One from the yellow starter deck, the very first one, and 4 of Angel One X. This is just an excellent lineup that you really want to have. The +1 security attack underneath the Angel Woman is super relevant, so you can build in the stack if you need to, but ideally you will be going over the Gatomon. I'll show you the quick combo. So Gatomon If you're on 3 or less security, you can go into the Angel one to get a heal, and then into this for free to get another heal, and then into the Ophanimon for the 3rd heal and the pop, because the Gatomon is of course the purple. And if the Ophanimon is deleted, you can play the Gatomon as well, and the Gatomon will trigger for the on-play effect, and you can start this all over again if you have these cards in your hand. And that's essentially what is deck is named after when they call it a loop, because that is a kind of loop, but it's not really self-fulfilling in the sense that you can easily get back these cards, because they're not easy to get back. You need to search them out through the Gatomon, or already have them in your hand, or maybe drawing them out. So it's not an efficient loop in that sense, but it's sort of a loop. So I can give it that. And yeah, that's why I only play the one Angelmon, because it does give me the +1 security attack, but you being on 3 or less security when you have this exact card in your hand isn't too often. So most of the time you are just doing it for the Angelmon, because the +1 security attack bonus is very relevant when you have a purple Digimon, and of course the -2 security attack when played is super relevant too, to keep you pushing into the later stages of the game. And of course, it's very easy to get into that +1 security attack when you go over into the Angelmon X. The Angelmon X also has, when Digivolving, -1 security attack to a Digimon, so that can be relevant too. You just got to keep that in mind. A lot of people only think about the healing, and sometimes I fall into that trap too, but it does have that -1 security attack when you Digivolve at any time. You get the healing when it's over an Angelwoman, or when you have the X Anybody option card in the stack. But we're of course not playing the X Anybody option card. Also, another neat little thing with the Gatomon is that you can evo the Gatomon into the Angelmon X for only 1 cost, having its evolution reduced through the Gatomon effect, because of course the Angelmon X is counted as a Archangel. So it's super good like that. But you're only really doing this when you're in a pinch, when you really need to get those draws, because you are perhaps bricking a little bit. Alright, moving on. The star herself, 3 Ophanimon. Super good, super solid. This card just gives you so much playing advantage. You can pop a guy, you can heal your guy, and it floats, and you can get security attack +1 if it's over a Angelmon from the Mastermon deck. It's just super solid all around, and it's essentially the heart and soul of the deck, because it can generate you so much playing value. And what I mean by playing value is that it's really simplistic in the value that it gives you. It's not, you don't have to jump through too many hoops. The deck is made, and the way it's made just sort of creates that simple value of getting +1 to your security attack, +1 to your security, plus pop a guy on the board, floating into another guy, and that guy that floats gets the on-play effect. It's just super plain value. And that sort of plain value is what will win you the games in the later stage. So 3, perhaps even 4 if you want to mess around with the ratios. I am considering 4 and dropping this Mastermon. Mastermon only comes up in extremely niche scenarios when your opponent is relatively low on security and you have a nice rush guy coming out of the trash. So Mastermon can give you surprise wins in that way, but those surprise wins are too far and in between for me to really like. I'd much rather just have that 4th Ophanimon to go into in the earlier stages of the game if I need them, because having the 4th one will mean that you'll be drawing it more often. Sakuyamon, really good anti-meta card to be using in the moment. It's a super solid -3 security attack to a Digimon that's coming out, and Digimons that come out are typically Digimon that want to be doing their OTKing in this format. You want to be looking at the Garurumon, the Ancient Greymon, the War Greymon X, the Kabuterimon, the Grand Kawagasmon, those kind of decks doing their OTKs, this is the anti-meta card for them, and it does a really good job for that. So it's really easy to go into your Angel Woman and then into Securemon, which is super solid, and that should push you into the late stages of the game. Last two megas is the Junimon and the Avenge Kidmon. These are essential to make sure you don't deck out if you go into the late stages of the game. They essentially form another loop where you won't be decking out, because you can play Avenge Kidmon to reset your deck and put all the options back. You are typically playing more options in the standard decks, so in that way you will be putting your deck at a higher count than your opponent. And then if you were to Evo up your, and then after it's deleted, you can Evo up your Junimon over a stack, and then the one Digivolving effect will trash 3 cards. But it will also bring back any Digimon. So here you can bring back the Avenge Kidmon, so you can loop your deck again to make sure you don't deck out. And you can continue that loop until you run out of access to Junimon, but of course it's not hard to maintain access to Junimon when you have cards like Calling from the Darkness to keep coming back. And you would have saw in one of my games against Blackball Greymon or Galmon that the Avenge Kidmon was very, very important to not deck out in that game. Last Digimon is Death Exmon. You only really need one. Death Exmon is only really important in the mid to late stages of the game, and having one means that you're going to get to that card at around that time. Also, you don't really want to be playing more copies, because more copies will brick your hands. If you want to get its effect off multiple times, if your opponent's able to remove it, you can of course bring it back to your hand with Calling from the Darkness, because it is a purple Digimon, so you can bring it back from the trash back to your hand and play it again to wipe the board. Super, super clean that way. And by playing 2 Callings, you're essentially playing 3 Death Exmon once it's in the trash or in your hand. So super, super solid. I love it. It's really good for niche scenarios when the opponent goes wide. And of course, it puts a lot of pressure on the board and forces your opponent into the much later stages of the game. And late stages of the game is where this deck absolutely thrives, especially in terms of, one, having a lot of security, so you can get a lot of value out of the security effects coming off, and 2, potentially decking out your opponent as the alternative win condition. For Tamers, 2 Kari, 1 TK. You don't want to play more than 1 TK because sometimes you don't have the yellow card in the security and you don't want to be forcing your own security to be low. That's just nasty. And then Kari is the next best tamer for yellow, because it is the memory tamer and you are healing quite often, so you will be getting that +1 memory. So 3. And then the 2 Makomon. This is why I say well, this is essentially why my thought process was playing the yellow hybrid, because you are playing more yellow tamers, but evoing in the stack is relevant sometimes, and only having one difference in Digimon in tamers colors for the hybrid isn't really too relevant, especially in the late stages of the game. You will be getting that Mako in your hand or from the security. Mako, really, really good. Dumping cards is super good for setting up your trash, as well as getting that free memory when a Gatomon's played. Super nice when comboing off with a Ophanimon, having it being deleted, getting back a Gatomon, and then of course getting that free memory, or even the Black Gatomon when you want to get that rush in. And keep turn, which is really nice. If you're on 5 memory and just need to play a rush Black Gatomon from your hand, you can tap the Mako to make sure you keep turn. Super solid. And for the last tamers, 2 Analog Youth. These guys pop off so often, especially because sometimes you are hard playing the Angel Woman to give -2 security attack to a Digimon, and then on your next turn you evo up an Angel Woman X, and then you can just start swinging with the Angel Woman X, sometimes with +1 security attack if you bring out a purple Digimon from the nursery, and then if that Angel Woman X dies, you can tap the Analog Youth to hatch another egg. It's just super good value, and that's the name of the deck. It's just good value. And getting that memory is just really, really nice. Trashing any card, getting more consistency with looking at the cards, just so good. And only playing 2 cost. I like it a lot. onto options. 4 Flaming Hell Scythe and 4 Chaos Degradation. Now, this deck does get a lot of effects coming out of security because you are buffing your security quite a lot with cards that give you lots of security plus. So you want to be taking advantage of that by playing these options that just give you really good value. For -6, this can take out your champions, your opponent's weenies, sometimes your opponent's ultimates if they're not careful, and then bringing back a Angelwoman for -2 security attack can stop you from being OTK'd, which is really good value. And of course, sets you up for Angelwoman X plays and a Phanimon plays to heal back up to a healthy amount on the next turn, and of course start clearing the board, and putting on a lot of pressure with that +1 security attack. Chaos Degradation is really difficult for opponents to play around. The only really out to this is Congo, which comes in the form of the best deck of the format, which is Alphamon. So Alphamon can unfortunately play around the Chaos Degradation because of that. But otherwise, it's just the best removal card of the format. One thing to keep in mind with these options is that they are dual-colored purple-yellow and yellow-purple, which means that you have to have both colors online on your board, either through Tamer, your nursery, or a Digimon on board, in order to activate these effects. This makes Black-Ball Greymon matches up kind of tricky because they can easily remove your yellow Tamers, which turns off your yellow options if you don't have the right Digimon on board to turn them on. So you just gotta be really careful in that matchup to play your Tamers in the later stages of the game so you can dodge their Black-Ball Greymons from popping them. Just something to keep in mind. If you're not going against them, it's very important to set your Tamers up early so that you can turn on your Flame Health Scythe so you can do them at the right time. It's very difficult to set up a Tamer and then Flame Health Scythe. A lot of the time you aren't working with that much memory. So setting up your Tamer first to set up the Flame Health Scythe for later is very important for that. And we'll move on to the last couple of options. We've got 2 Win Rate and 2 Calling for the Darkness. Calling for the Darkness is super important to get back your right cards in hand in order to execute the right values at the right time. Sometimes good for getting back your Phanimons so you can get that pop and heal in this super clean way. And of course, Win Rate, really good. One thing about this is that the color of the Digimon that you have to drop has to be the same Digimon that you're evoing from. So a lot of the time you will be evoing from the Angelwoman X or the Angelwoman, so you have to drop a yellow Digimon. It can't be a purple, but it can be a yellow-purple Digimon. So keep that in mind when running the Win Rate. Also, the activation of Win Rate does not instantly evo your Digimon. So what I'm saying is, if you were to activate this while you're on 1 memory and you didn't have a way to gain back the memory, then you would be activating this, paying the 2 memory, and then it would pass your opponent's turn, then starting on the 1 memory, which means you don't activate the Win Rate. This can be important if you want to specifically choke your opponent on 1 without committing to the evolution, but it won't give you that evo immediately. So if you want to get that evo without passing turn, you need to be activating this when you're on 2 or more memory. And that's all of the cards. Just on a quick rundown on what cards I might replace for the purple memory boosts. It would probably come down to, well, the Mastermon, of course, replacing for the 4th Ophani, the Mikumon replacing for the memory boost, the Kazemon replacing for the purple hybrid, or potentially the 2nd memory boost. Consistency is super important in this deck, so something for you to consider and mess around with in this format. Other than that, I'm extremely happy with this deck, and extremely happy for it to actually have a bit of a spotlight in BT9, considering a lot of the decks are orientated in that OTK style. A really fun deck to play around, considering that it is a value deck and sort of controls through the security. So that's nice to counter the OTK style decks. If you like this deck profile, guys, we already have some matches of it on the channel, of it just popping off against decks like Leomon, not a high tier deck, but still a fun deck, and of course the Black-Ball Greymon deck. Be sure to subscribe. I'll be doing a lot of BT10 videos coming up in next week. I'm sure it'll be fun to have a sneak peek at that new set. And I'll see you next time.